Hello class, today we're going to learn about the cast rule. So if you recall that I told you that the sign of the trigonometric ratio, which are sine, cos, and tan, depends on the quadrant in which the principal angle theta is located. So here I have my Cartesian grid with the axes labeled 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. So I have already drawn my initial arm, which is in green here, which is always in the 0 axis. Then if I draw my terminal arm in the first quadrant, I can form a right angled triangle with the 0 axis. In this quadrant, my x value is positive, my y value is positive, and my r value, which is always positive as well. So if I think back to my trigonometric ratios, sine of theta is, if you recall, our opposite over our hypotenuse, sorry. The opposite value for our angle in this quadrant, where this could be beta or theta, they're both the same, is y over r. And the cos of the theta is x over r for adjacent over hypotenuse. Then the tan of the theta is opposite over adjacent, which is y over x. So in this quadrant, all three trig ratios are positive. So I can write the conclusion for this quadrant here that all ratios are positive. Now if I move the terminal arm into the second quadrant over here and draw my right angled triangle, here I have a negative x value and a positive y value and still a positive r value. So when I look back to my sine ratio, it's y over r, so positive over positive, which makes the sine ratio positive. The cos of the angle is going to be the adjacent, which is negative x over positive r, so that's going to make my value negative. The tan of the angle is going to be opposite over adjacent, so positive over negative, which makes my ratio negative. So in this quadrant, only sine ratio is positive. Okay, so if now I go another quadrant further and I draw my right angled triangle, I still have my negative x, I have my negative y this time, I still have my positive r. So in this quadrant, when I take the sine of the theta, I'm taking opposite, which is a negative, over hypotenuse, which is a positive. So negative over positive is a negative value. Cos of theta is my adjacent, which is my negative x, over my hypotenuse, which is positive r. So negative over positive is a negative. Then, when I take my tan of theta, I have a negative y value over a negative x value. And that ends up being a positive, because negative divided by negative is a positive. So in this quadrant, I have only tan ratio is positive. Now if I look at my last quadrant and draw a right angle, I have my positive x value, my negative y value, and still my positive r. So when I take the sine ratio, I'm looking at my opposite, which is negative over a positive, which gives me a negative. Then my cos is my adjacent over my hypotenuse, which is positive, and my tan is a negative divided by positive, which is a negative. So in this quadrant, only cosine is positive. If I take the acronym of each of these quadrants, I've got A, S, T, and C. If I start from here, I've got C-A-S-T, which spells for C-A-S-T.